Grace Davidson had a unique condition that 1 in every 5,000 cisgender women are born with, Mayer-Rokitansky-Kuster-Hauser syndrome, which essentially means that she was born without a uterus. For Grace, this meant that pregnancy was impossible, and for much of her life this governed how she viewed her relationships and her future. However, all of that would change when, according to The Guardian in May of 2025, Grace gave live birth and held her beautiful baby daughter in her arms, becoming the first woman in the United Kingdom to successfully receive a uterus transplant. If medicine can transplant a uterus into someone who has never had one, researchers at the Cleveland Health Clinic in 2025 are looking into the possibility of expanding this procedure for those who are transgender. According to the UCLA School of Law in 2025, there are upwards of 700,000 trans feminine individuals who could potentially benefit from such a procedure. And of those surveyed, 61% stated that they would prefer biological methods of pregnancy over surrogacy and adoption. So today, we need to dive into the breakthrough medical advancement that is uterine transplants and see how they can offer a new light, especially for those who are transgender. We'll first do that by examining the history of uterine transplants, then the applications, before going over some implications. Because in a world with uterine transplants, does gender determine who can carry a child, or does science? Let us first begin with some historical background on uterine transplants and how they are done. A uterus transplant, simply put, is a surgical procedure where a healthy donor uterus is implanted into someone without a functioning uterus, enabling pregnancy and childbirth. The goal isn't permanent organ replacement, but temporary usage of the uterus for the purposes of child implementation and child development. According to the Cleveland Health Clinic in 2025, uteruses can be donated by either living or deceased donors, depending on the hospital's program, with donor and recipient matching being based on factors such as blood type, tissue compatibility, and overall health. But before this option existed, what happened to individuals who were born without a uterus or people who had lost uterine function later in life? Well, a historical perspective will help us answer that. Historically, individuals without a uterus, such as Grace Davidson, or people who had lost uterine function later in life due to illness or surgery failures, had only two paths to pregnancy: adoption or surrogacy. As the American Journal of Transplantation explains in 2023, because the uterus is essential for child development, it was considered medically impossible to conceive a child without one. This ultimately motivated researchers to begin analyzing uterine transplants as reproductive health care. And surprisingly, they're not all that new. According to a 2024 Scientific American article, there have been over 100 uterine transplants performed worldwide, with roughly half resulting in live births. Supporting this, a 2024 JAMA case series found that in a cohort of 20 patients, 14 were later able to give live birth. And while so far all live births have occurred in cisgender women, the emerging question is whether or not a uterine transplant could enable pregnancy in a transgender woman. And while it may seem impossible, our applications just might show otherwise. There are two key applications to discuss today. First is uterine transplants as a form of gender-affirming care, and second is biological pregnancy through mitomeiosis. Starting with our first application, researchers at Oregon Health and Science University in 2023 did a survey of over 182 transgender women and found that more than 90% believed a uterus transplant could enhance feelings of femininity, improve overall quality of life, and provide a sense of fulfillment. This has motivated researchers to begin looking at uterine transplants as more than just a form of reproductive health care, but as a form of gender-affirming care for transgender women. However, it's important to understand the limits of current uterine transplants. See, a uterus transplant will only transplant the uterus and cervix, but not the ovaries and fallopian tubes. As the American Journal of Transplantation explains in 2023, the ovaries and fallopian tubes are essential for getting the egg into the uterus and ultimately fertilizing it. All of this to say, a uterus transplant is like delivering an oven, but not plugging it in. So how then are we to get a bun in the oven that is genetically related to both parents, and how are we supposed to activate the oven? Well, this takes us to our second application, mitomeiosis. Researchers at Oregon Health and Science University in 2025 have discovered an exciting new prospect known as mitomeiosis. In this process, adult human skin cells can be reprogrammed into egg-like cells, wherein, when they come in contact with sperm, they shed half of their chromosomes and begin functioning just like a normal egg. Supporting this concept, scientists at Japan's Riken Center in 2023 did a survey on live mice and found that the mice were later able to deliver live, genetically related births. While human clinical trials are likely a decade or more away, this research represents a significant expansion in reproductive healthcare and reproductive technologies. And it's forcing us to rethink about how we look at pregnancy. Instead, we can look at it as three crucial steps. First is a uterus transplant. Second is egg creation through mitomeiosis. And third is implementation and gestation through in vitro fertilization, or IVF, where an egg is created outside of the body and implanted into a transplanted uterus. But of course, with any new surgery, there are going to be implications. And it is crucial that we understand both the positive and the negative implications of uterine transplants. Starting with some positive implications. Uterine transplants can open the door for pregnancy for individuals who have historically never had access. Additionally, as the American Journal of Transplantation explains in 2024, carrying a child can offer meaningful psychological, emotional, and physiological benefits, as carrying a child may enhance feelings of normalcy and fulfillment while simultaneously reducing feelings of dysphoria. Additionally, uterine transplants expand reproductive health care, providing new options for individuals who have historically been denied access to reproductive health care. However, of course, with any new surgery, there are some very key side effects and negative implications to look at today. Not least of which, according to Scientific American in 2024, uterine transplants are largely experimental and considered financially out of reach for many individuals. And while yes, this emerging technology has provided exciting results, it is very crucial that we look at the fact that there are no long-term sample sizes. There are so few individuals who have received a uterine transplant, and long-term data is significantly limited. Additionally, in the short-term data that we have, while yes, successful births have occurred, there have been a lot of complications, such as gestational hypertension, miscarriage, acute kidney injury, and living donors face risks, as severing vascular connections can produce cardiovascular side effects. Finally, racial biases must be considered with uterine transplants. According to Penn University in 2025, despite Black women being more likely to report race as a barrier to fertility treatment, there are only 2 or 3 known Black and Hispanic uterine transplant recipients worldwide. This limiting in sample size and limiting in long-term outcomes is resulting in uterine transplants potentially not being a viable form of healthcare or a form of reproductive care. Further research is absolutely needed, and it's crucial that we don't jump to conclusions immediately. So today, we discuss the breakthrough medical advancements of uterine transplants, their applications, and their implications. We learned that uterine transplants are becoming a breakthrough medical advancement that can give many individuals opportunity to a new light, including those who are transgender. Grace Davidson's baby, little baby May, is almost a year old now. She is likely learning how to walk on her own, how to play with blocks, and how to eat with a spoon. Just a few years ago, baby May would have been impossible. Therefore, we as a community have to reconsider our long-standing assumptions about biology, identity, and the limits that exist within reproductive healthcare.